They know who them Negro Indians are, who they're calling different tribes like Gad, Reuben, and Judah. They're calling them different things, everything other than Dan. You won't really find no. I haven't found anyone calling themselves Dan yet. And these camp Negroes know exactly who these Indians are, and they put it in a lot of the Israelites' face that you don't know who they are. And you see these Negroes are Indians and have never been taken away from some of their heritage. Some of them have never been taken away, although they do have descendants who don't have knowledge of who they are. Because this is what I mentioned about the Negroes in the midst of a lot of folly in New York. This same Facebook page says American Indians of Long Island, New York. By the year 1643, there were 13 different Indian tribes living on Long Island. Canarsie, Rockaway, Matinecock, Merrick, Massapequa, Nissequag, Secotowag, Seatucket, Patchawag, Korchog, Shinnecock, Manhasset, and Montauk. And these are Negroes. The Negro Indians who forefather is this ODB said he represented it to the fullest. Okay, so I want to go into a few precepts that this also is that concerns these people, and how we can not just prove that through history, who have always consented with the beast. Also, Erykah Badu knows she's a Choctaw. As you see, she has somewhat of an eccentric side to her, and she actually was probably informing a lot of the Negroes that she was around, like the Andre 3000s and the Commons, in common that they are the Indians also, and a lot of them knew that. To the Negro Indians today, there's a lot of them. Rosa Parks also was a Negro Indian. I'm going to go right here to this website here, where a lot of the celebrities and politicians and different people who are set up as the heads of the people who a lot of the common people look up to, are Indians. It says Michael Jackson and Rosa Parks, 10 black people with native ancestry. Excuse me. It says Michael Jackson and all the Jacksons. In an interview with Joe Jackson in the book The Jacksons, he tells the readers that he has Choctaw in his family history. There are also unconfirmed accounts that Michael Jackson's mother, Katherine Jackson, has Blackfoot ancestry. James Earl Jones also has Cherokee and Choctaw and African American roots. Definitely Beyonce and Jay-Z. Jay-Z being from New York and the Negro Indians, and Beyonce being of the Creole, which Houston and Louisiana are a large community of these Native Americans. Rosa Parks rocked the civil rights world when she refused to give up her seat to a white male passenger on a segregated bus. Called the First Lady of Civil Rights by the U.S. Congress, Rosa Parks was also of Cherokee and Creek descent. There was a Rosa Parks before Rosa Parks. Her name, I believe, was Claudette Colvin, who did the same thing, who refused to give up her seat on the bus to a white man, and she was too dark. She was too dark to be the First Lady of Civil Rights, so they set up Rosa Parks to do the same thing, and she's as you can see, a lighter version. And these two Negroes have set our people back with their integration tactics and their let's mix everybody up together with the so-called white man and these Negro Indians who are the devil. So we've actually been integrated with the so-called white devils and black devils. The Negro Indians, two people that hate us, two of our enemies that both of them had us in captivity, and these civil rights movements were set up by the government. And you know this by them calling them First Lady of Civil Rights by the U.S. Congress, when there was a first Claudette Colvin. Oprah Winfrey was a straight devil. She knows that she's an Indian. She claims she went the DNA testing route, but that's not true. She knows exactly who she is. She's a straight sellout coon Negro to the, well, not a coon, she's for her people, the Negro Indians, and not the slave trade. LL Cool J, another Satan worshiper, says just as William Lloyd Katz proclaims on his website regarding Africans and Indians, though often unmentioned except in family circles. So these things aren't even talked about except in family. And the only family that's speaking about these things are the Negro Indians to each other. They got a little secret code where they'll be like, well, I'm black, but I got Indian in my family. It's because they know history. And they don't mention these things to the Negro from the slave trade. And as I also mentioned that there's they were threatened not to be able to do these things. It says here, the biological legacy has been shared by such figures as Frederick Douglass, Martin Luther King Jr. Martin Luther King Jr. was an Indian from Alabama. Langston Hughes, Lena Horne, Alice Walker, Jesse Jackson, Michael Jackson, and LL Cool J. Jesse Jackson definitely a sellout Negro with his African American label. It says in Cat's book, LL Cool J is holding a copy of Black Indians and claims Cherokee descent. Enough said. These Negroes know who they are. As I really want to point out this. Ab the Legend, he's the one who ran the 1828 definition of American page. Also has another page on Instagram where he knows he's an Indian, and these Negro Indians are his descendants. Later I'm going to do a video that shows and proves that Obama's real father is a Negro Indian from the tribe of Dan, that the Hamite isn't even his dad. He sold that story to the American people because he didn't want the real knowledge of who his father is, or the presidency to be recognized by Negroes as theirs. So really, it's a big hoax that he set up this his other book. His book was Dreams from My Father, and this Dreams from My Real Father video goes into showing and proving that this Hamite isn't his dad. Found these Samson images on Nathaniel 7. You see down here Nathaniel 7's Instagram page. He exalts Samson quite a bit. Samson's from the tribe of Dan. Well, if you was an Israelite from any of the 12 tribes, why would you be exalting Samson? The Dan tribe isn't even written among the elect of Israel. So he does this because he knows he's a Danite. He knows he's from the tribe of Dan, misleading our people. Okay, I want to go over just a few things that I just went over. How we show and prove that these Choctaw and Chickasaws hate us from the 12 tribes. They actually owned slaves, joined the Confederate South, signed Reconstruction treaties, and have remained faithful American allies. Sold indigenous lands that was not theirs. They set up our own civil rights movements. MLK Jr. and Rosa Parks are from these Negro Indians. Part of how we prove that these Negroes are the Dan tribe. Serpent by the way, and the adder in the path that has bitten the horse's heel and caused for us to fall backwards in understanding, backwards in our truth. And many of these Negroes are going to get bit by these Indians. We go to a few precepts now. This also I found was very informative. It's in an American deception. Black and Native Americans, these Negro Indians know that they're Indians, and their history is within the Native Americans and not the slave trade. And even to tell you that they own slaves, their forefathers owned slaves. So very informative. If you don't believe me telling you that there's Negroes calling them Native Americans calling themselves Negroes. I'm not going to go into this one, but I'm going to go into the precepts now. I'd like to go into Psalms 50. Psalms 50, starting with verse 16. It says, "But unto the wicked the Most High saith, What hast thou to do to declare my statutes, or that thou shouldest take my covenant in thy mouth?" Okay, so it takes knowledge of a little bit of history and the knowledge of all of the tribes to understand exactly who he's talking about, because he doesn't mention who is being spoken to, but only says, "But unto the wicked." Very important. It says here, "Seeing thou hatest instructions and castest my words behind thee. When thou sawest a thief, then thou consentest with him, and hast been partaker with adulterers." If you go into the book of Obadiah, where it speaks of the thief that keeps on stealing, and speaks of Esau and Edom. Also in Jeremiah 49, it speaks of Edom and Esau being the thief that just keeps on stealing. Most thieves will steal until they've had enough and go before trouble comes. But this thief, the so-called white man, has stolen and stolen, keeps stealing, and just won't stop. So as I said before, these are deep sayings and dark sentences that takes knowledge of other precepts. It takes knowledge of the tribes. It takes knowledge of Esau. Because if you've been misled in your understanding of exactly who is spoken of as being a thief that was being consented with, then you're not going to understand this at all, which is what I found one of the reasons why you'll find some of these doctrines misleading our people into the understanding of who Esau is and who Edom is. It's because there's other deep sayings and deep speech that will that doesn't mention names, but more not parabolic, but more, as I say, dark saying, because you wouldn't understand this if you was being misled in other areas. So yeah, you can't be partial in some of the basic things to understand some of the darker things, darker sayings, and the deeper things. So you have to be on the right page from the beginning in order to understand some of these things. Here in verse 18 of Psalms 50, it says, "When thou sawest a thief, then thou consentest with him, and has been partaker with adulterers. Okay, so how was they consented with the thief? As I just read, how the Choctaw Chickasaws and the Negro Indians have completely consented with the beast. So that's the thief that they're speaking of, is the beast that completely taken the 12 tribes of Israel away from everything that was ever theirs, their land, their history, their heritage, our rulership, everything. So there is somebody who is being called the wicked, who saw us a thief and consented with him. And here it says, thou givest thy mouth to evil, and thy tongue frameth deceit. Important words here in these precepts, because you're dealing with evil and deceit coming from their mouth. Verse 20, it says, thou sittest and speakest against thy brother, thou slanderest thine own mother's son. On every level. You have the Negro coon, Steve Harvey says he don't give a damn about slavery. You have a lot of them slandering our people for the CIA's agenda and for the American agenda. And also going into these doctrines and these truths that they slander in our people. It says, these things hast thou done, and I kept silence. Thou thoughtest that I was altogether such an one as thyself. But I will reprove thee and set them in order before thine eyes. Okay, so here it says he's allowed for them to do these things. And he kept silence. Very deep is this next sentence. This next sentence is an entire lesson in itself, where it says, thou thoughtest that I was altogether such an one as thyself, where it mentions all these things that these wicked, evil, deceitful, speaking, slandering people have done. And then it says, thou thoughtest that I was altogether such an one as thyself, extremely deep. That's not for this lesson. That's an entire different lesson that I'll go over. But it says, but I will reprove thee and set them in order before thine eyes. Through the internet, they're going to sit there and watch our people, learn about who the Dan tribe is, learn how they've manipulated our people, and there's nothing that they can do. It says, set them in order before thine eyes. They're going to sit and watch us learn the truth while they continue being the serpent by the way and the adder in the path. 22 says, now consider this, ye that forget God, lest I tear you in pieces, and there be none to deliver. They have forgotten God, because if you can go back into the book of Judges, even in chapter 13, and you read about Manoah from the tribe of Dan, he was a righteous man who followed God, who knew God. And it says, now consider this, ye that forget God. Their tribe of people has forgotten who the Most High is. It says, lest I tear you in pieces. I would read that if I was from the Dan tribe and manipulating the real 12 tribes of Israel and turn from any wickedness that I was under. Because I would not want to be torn in pieces by the Creator. And it says, and there be none to deliver. They have no God to save them from the almighty powerful strength of the 12 tribes. So it says, consider this, ye that forget God, lest I tear you in pieces, and there be none to deliver. That right there would make me turn from my wickedness if I was a Danite, deceitfully misleading the people of the 12 tribes. Okay, so that is what I've said is dark sayings, because it doesn't mention the names of the people being spoken to, but it's deeper. You got to be deep into the truth. You got to know truth to understand this truth. Psalms 55. Throughout Psalms, I've found quite a few of these deep things. But I'm just going to go over a few here right now. Here in Psalms 55, it says, wickedness, Psalms 55, verse 11. Wickedness is in the midst thereof, deceit and guile depart not from her streets. For it was not an enemy that reproached me, then I could have borne it. Neither was it he that hated me that did magnify himself against me, then I would have hid myself from him. Okay, so if it was Esau, if it was the Moabites, Ammonites, the Ishmaelites, an enemy that you know was your enemy, then you could have hid yourself from them. But these, it says, it was neither an enemy that reproached me, then I could have borne it. Neither was it that he that hated me that did magnify himself against me, then I would have hid myself from him. But in the Hebrew Israelite awakening, they're black, so you don't even know that. And they're calling themselves Hebrew, and they look like us. They're the tares. You could have hid yourself if you knew that they was the Dan tribe. It says, but if it was thou, a man mine equal, my guide and mine acquaintance, we took sweet counsel together and walked into the house of the Most High in company. So this is another deep thing, this deep speech that speaks of a man mine equal. We was all the 12 sons of Jacob. Dan is a son of Jacob, or was one of the sons of Jacob, blotted out, as I'll go over in Revelation. Well, I'll do that right now. Revelation 7:4, and I heard the number of them which were sealed, and they were sealed 144,000 of all the tribes of the children of Israel. Very important, all the tribes, and it does not mention the Dan tribe. So it says, It was thou, a man mine equal, my guide and mine acquaintance. We took sweet counsel together and walked into the house of the Most High in company. So Dan at one time in the Old Covenant walked in company with the rest of the 12. It says, let death seize upon them and let them go down quick into hell, for wicked